All right, so let's get started. So again, welcome to the PowerPlate Rev workshop, the Discover workshop. And the second one of these was ever delivered because it is a brand new product. So very excited to be sharing information about sort of the product itself, what it is, how it works, and obviously how to get the most out of it. So firstly, my name is Steve Powell, Director of Training Education for PowerPlate. I've been working for PowerPlate for almost 15 years. I've been using whole body vibration for the last 20 years, and I've been heavily involved over the last couple of years with the development of the REV in terms of aspects of the research, but also trying and testing. So it's very exciting for us to be able to share this product with you today. And hopefully for some of you, you've maybe already tried it, some of you maybe are yet to try it. And obviously, I know that some obviously in the audience already have access and are probably using it. So the most important thing, guys, is that within this sort of 55 minutes, I cover all or as much information as I'm going to share. But also, if you have any questions, then like I said, we have a relatively small group. So by all means, drop questions in the chat as we go along. And then what we'll do, the plan essentially for the session in terms of the structure is almost to kind of break it into two parts. The first part is very much an introduction to the product, what it is, what it does, how the body responds in exactly the same way as we would typically talk about our other products, primarily PowerPlate and whole body vibration. So looking at what is it, why does it work, and how to use it. And then depending on the audience, we'll talk a little bit about practical application, and I will go through a little bit of practical right at the end. So again, please make sure if you haven't already, drop it in the chat so I know if anyone does have the REV, then I know I'm not going to be on my own a little bit later. Okay, so let's talk, or let's start a little bit with obviously it's a bike. It's a self-powered modality, so we're calling it self-powered vibration. But really, what it allows us to do is to create what we call the vibration experience. So whether you're working in a health club environment, a clinical environment, whether you have a product at home or maybe within a gym, or even a single product at home, then the idea of the REV for us has been this evolution of the vibration ecosystem, essentially. In other words, we now have what is a familiar, a recognized cardiovascular modality enhanced by vibration. So for us, it's very much around how do we now program, how can we create an experience where our customers, our users, and maybe your customers, your users are utilizing whole body vibration, they're using self-powered vibration now with the REV, and potentially the targeted vibration and percussive vibration as well. So it's very much, we feel that this kind of closes the loop in terms of our product portfolio. So very much this is a way of enhancing cardiovascular training, very specifically interval-based workouts, which I'm going to expand on shortly. So the vibration experience is kind of our 10,000-foot view of how we see the REV fitting into our other products. So looking at a little bit more detail around the REV itself. So as we talk about with all of our products, there's kind of three key questions really we always get asked. And that is, what is it? Why should I use it? And how do I use it? So what's interesting for me, being around whole body vibration for so long, is that when we talk about the REV, it's actually a much more simple explanation when we talk about the benefits. So what is it? Well, it's a unique combination of resistance and vibration delivered through the pedals. So yes, it is the pedals that vibrate specifically, and only the pedals, so the vibration is transmitted to the user directly through the pedals. Why should we use it? Well, it significantly increases mechanical and metabolic power during cycling. So it increases mechanical and metabolic power during cycling. And if we have any cycling enthusiasts in the audience or cycling specialists, then we know that watts and power output is a huge component of cycling. So we feel this is a very unique environment in order to enhance mechanical and metabolic power. I'm going to expand on that as we go through the rest of the session. And then how do we use it? Well, it's very simple. It upgrades short duration interval and essentially hit-based programs and workouts. So it's about optimizing short duration, interval-based, hit-based training, obviously depending on the user, depending on the training objective, the training phase. So it really spans a huge area from fitness to medical to performance, but essentially the positioning of the REV is very much around optimizing short duration and interval-based protocols. So where does this sit in relation to our other vibration products? Then essentially we talk about three different compartments or three different buckets with our vibration products. And I'm just going to slide back a little bit. Clicker seems to be getting excited. So if we look at whole body vibration, which obviously we've been doing now for over 20 years, then whole body vibration is very much whole body, whole system. We talk about the harmonic vibration wave. And whether you're using power plate whole body vibration for a warming up, so preparing the body faster for a workout, performing better, or for your recovering quicker, then essentially whole body vibration is what we kind of consider the pivotal product that we've been working with for many, many years. We introduced what we call targeted vibration products a number of years ago. So the pulse and the massage guns or percussive vibration, and also our vibrating rollers and our dual sphere, so our soft tissue tools. And then really the REV is the first, a world's first self-powered vibration. So we describe that as a predictable and precise vibration, but a little bit different to whole body vibration in the sense of that it targets the lower body regions. So as I said, because the vibration is being delivered through the pedals, then it's a very, very different experience because we are primarily and stimulating the lower body regions that are obviously involved in the action of cycling. So essentially this self-powered vibration becomes a very unique category in and of itself. But as I said right at the beginning, the idea is that it is very much complementary to all of our other products. So you, for example, within a workout, we might warm up using whole body vibration. We might integrate whole body vibration and self-powered vibration with the REV for a workout, and then recovery would then be again with whole body or potentially with percussive vibration. It really is a suite of products that allows a very complete workout for many, many users and for many, many different goals and many, many different objectives. So to talk a little bit now in relation to the REV itself, in relation to the technology science, then hopefully if you can see on the screen the visual that shows essentially the crank system. So we call it vibe shift technology. So essentially you have an option to turn the vibration on and turn the vibration off. So firstly, without the vibration on, it's a very, very smooth magnetic resistance that is delivered through the rear flywheel. So very, very smooth ride, and you can obviously adjust the resistance on the flywheel with magnetic resistance. So when we are cycling without vibration, a very, very smooth, as you would expect with sort of an indoor cycle. However, the magic happens when we push the left or the black lever down, and that really engages what we call vibe shift technology. So essentially what it does is it shifts to a completely different crank system, and as a result of that, the system itself or the mechanism generates friction that then generates resistance and vibration at the same time. So essentially the visual kind of diagram is sort of representational of this very, although it's predictable, creates a vibration through the mechanism itself, hence why it's self-powered. So that's what we mean by the vibe shift technology. It's this very unique combination of resistance, and that mechanism then generates the vibration. So what does that mean then in terms of the type of vibration and then also the relationship between cycling? So one of the key components is the relationship between the vibration and the speed or cadence. So as we know with whole body vibration, there are certain frequencies in relation to the optimum response in the body from a neuromuscular standpoint. Is we know that typically between 30 and 40 hertz as we've talked about for many years with power plate, is the optimum frequency to elicit an increase in muscle activation from a neuromuscular standpoint. So what you'll see is, hopefully the chart that you're looking at is clear, is that in order to get to a certain frequency of vibration with the REV, you have to cycle at a certain cadence. So essentially, as you can see on the screen, starting from 60, 70, 80, 90, every component or every aspect of revolutions per minute, so the speed, relates to a certain frequency. So what we are recommending from the preliminary research that we've done is that in order to optimize the vibration component in relation to muscle activation, around 90 to 110 up to 120 hertz is that similar window, so essentially between 30 and 40 hertz, that relates to power plate. So hopefully that kind of makes sense as we talk a little bit later about when you see some of the protocols, or all of our protocols, particularly when we're talking about the more short duration interval-based protocols, then it's about optimizing that vibration stimulus to the body. And to do that, we have to cycle at a certain cadence and speed, so between 90 and 110, 120 maximum, which is a really, really interesting experience when, if you have tried it, one, to maintain the cadence because we're adding resistance, but also then we're optimizing the response in the body because the vibration is at a frequency that we know is optimum from a muscle activation standpoint. So that's hopefully a guide to and an introduction to why our protocols are designed in certain ways, particularly when they are cadence related. So I mentioned right at the beginning about the increase in mechanical power, and what essentially we've looked at when we did some preliminary research. I was involved in some of the preliminary research myself at Greenwich University over here in the UK, is that when you change from no vibration to vibration, we know that we're adding resistance. So essentially, to compare when you have vibration on gear 1, from a resistance standpoint, is almost the equivalent to a 4 or a 5 without vibration. So in other words, as soon as you add the vibration mechanism, the resistance increases, therefore power increases. However, what we find very interesting is that even though there's an average of 114 watt increase when you add the vibration, then what happens is when you get to a cadence of 90 RPM and above, the power increases. So we believe, and we see from the preliminary studies, that's definitely cadence related. So it's not just as simple as adding resistance, it's the unique combination of resistance plus vibration that gives us that increase in mechanical power, which obviously is very, very important in relation to sort of specific adaptations in relation to cycling. So straight away, if you haven't experienced this, then when you do experience it, just by adding the vibration and going to vibe shift adds resistance, and then it's the vibration itself that then gives you even greater muscle stimulation. So essentially, it's almost like having two gear systems within the same bike. I'm just going to pause there just for a second, just to make sure I'm checking the chat. Okay, perfect. I think so far. So again, in summary, this is exactly what the product is doing. It's increasing resistance, adding vibration, therefore increasing power. So when we look at that in relation to what's happening in the body, as I've already touched on, then from a movement science standpoint, we know that obviously cycling involves specific lower body muscles. So the chart that I've just put on the screen now is universal to cycling. It's nothing specific or exclusive to the REV. This is just a standard analysis of the muscles that are involved within the cycling action and the pedal stroke. So essentially, we know that obviously the quads, we have glutes, hamstrings, calves. So all of those muscles are essentially involved in driving the pedal stroke. Whether we call it the power phase, the recovery phase, pushing and pulling, none of that matters essentially. But what we know is that there are certain key muscles involved at kind of different components or different stages of the pedal cycle. and therefore those muscles are under tension. And here's where the link to vibration comes in. We know that tension in the body is a magnet for the vibration. So essentially what we're looking at, and this is what we see in our preliminary research, is that all of those muscles that are involved in the cycling movement are stimulated with the vibration. Therefore, we have an increase in muscle activation, specifically of those lower body regions. So then when we look at that from a preliminary research, from a preliminary study standpoint, then we've done 3 preliminary studies that relate to more acute responses. And obviously what we will be doing, everybody that's attended this session will be receiving an email with a link to our brand new online learning platform where you can access the research and much more information, even some of the protocols and some of the videos that follow along workouts, but they will include the section on research for those of you that want to look at this in more detail. We will be following up with this from this session and providing you with that link to our new platform. So essentially these 3 research papers, I guess in summary, show that when we add mechanical vibration during cycling, there is a significant increase in both the physiological and metabolic demand placed on the body. And I just wanted to highlight one of those particular papers because I've talked about muscle activation. Then we know that those primary muscles involved in cycling, we show a significant increase in muscle activation. This particular paper looks at obviously different cadences, and what we find is it's not just, again, about the fact that it's adding vibration, it's adding vibration at a certain speed of cycling as well. 90 RPM in this particular research study showed the most significant increase in muscle activation. So again, just pulling out a few points from the study is the calf activation increased by 43%, quads 167, hamstrings 144, and glutes 138. In other words, in summary, and hopefully you can see that visually when you look at the graphs as well, there's a significant increase in those primary muscles that are involved in cycling as a result of the vibration, plus as a result of cycling at 90 RPM. And hopefully that kind of corresponds, as I said before, to around 30 hertz, which is why when we look at our protocol design, for the working intervals, we are recommending a window of between 90 and 110, maybe 120 maximum, depending on duration of the protocol. So really, we're trying to optimize muscle stimulation and muscle activation. What we've also done is this was based in the US, a 4-week pilot study looking more at longer-term adaptations, longer-term responses in relation to metabolic health and metabolic fitness. But this was also testing different protocols, in particular, a protocol that we're using a lot now, and really because we feel that the vibration component optimizes this particular interval-based program. You may or may not be familiar with the term REHIT, which is reduced exertion high intensity training. So it's a very interesting area of development in relation to protocol, something I would highly recommend looking into further, from both obviously a performance enhancement perspective, but more importantly as well from a metabolic disease, metabolic health perspective as well. So we feel that then we have sort of implications not just in fitness and in performance, but also in medical fitness and health as well. So this particular paper was 4 weeks, and really, again, you may or may not be familiar with what's called a MET Z-score, which is a measure of metabolic health and one's ever-changing risk of metabolic disease. And what we saw for this study was, again, the optimized protocol was reduced exertion, high intensity training, interval training with vibration, showed a very positive change, a significantly positive change in the MET Z-score, which essentially shows this ability or effectiveness of attenuating cardiometabolic risk. And sort of to go into that a little bit more detail, then really what we're saying is that the use of both vibration and this specific particular rehit protocol is a combination that optimizes the response in the body in relation to metabolic health or reducing the risk of metabolic disease. And we also found, and the research shows, there was a significant change and increase in VO2 max. And the key takeaway message really in summary of this, beyond the effect on metabolic risk, is also the more work in less time. So the ability of the protocol enhanced by vibration to show really a very significant increase in fitness, cardiovascular, cardiorespiratory fitness over the 4 weeks, in comparison to doing the same protocols, both with and without vibration, for what's kind of classed as moderate intensity cardiovascular training. So again, sort of optimizing the vibration component when we're using short duration interval-based protocols. Again, for those of you that want to look at this in more detail, then you will be given access to these papers in more and more detail. Okay, so I'm just going to pause there, guys. If there's any questions at this point, please drop them in the chat. I'm going to kind of keep going. If there aren't any questions, I'll sort of keep going, but please feel free to drop those questions into the chat. And there's a lot of information to cover. So we've talked about what is the product, what is VibeShift technology, what is the optimum speed and frequency that relates obviously to the Cadence, and then a little bit of an introduction into some of the early research. And now what I want to talk about is what are some of the specific benefits of using the REV, and they can really be broken down into the components. We talk about sort of the neurological components, so software, the hardware, muscles, bones, tendons, ligaments, and then what we call the highways, which is our circulatory processes as well. And I think it's kind of easy to sort of break down, specific now to the REV, in two components. So response and adaptation. We know that, as I've already shared, there's a significant increase in muscle fiber recruitment. We know that from our initial research and EMG research that I was actually part of myself in some of the testing. So we know that we have a significant increase in muscle fiber recruitment. Therefore, we have this increase and potential increase in mechanical power, so being able to produce more watts, and then as a more longer term adaptation, increasing local muscular endurance, which we know obviously is a key benefit of doing cycling-based training anyway, but we're looking at the ability of the technology to optimize that response, increase mechanical power, and therefore increase local muscular endurance. So I kind of bucket that into one section, which is where, when I said right at the beginning about mechanical power, and then we look at the metabolic response. So this increase in adaptation in metabolic power, so improvements in VO2 max. We see the acute responses of VCO2, so carbon dioxide production, blood lactate, and obviously massive elevations in heart rate because of both the local or the central and peripheral metabolic response and metabolic demand placed on the body with the technology. So therefore, we're able to improve cardiovascular, cardiorespiratory endurance. And that's why we kind of summarize that right at the beginning with metabolic and mechanical power. So from a user standpoint and application, then we know that cycling is a very familiar modality. So again, kind of our positioning of the product is very much around optimizing short duration and interval-based programming, because obviously those key benefits I've just walked through. Okay, so I'm just going to pause there for a second, guys. I'm going to give you the opportunity. We have a very small group. I appreciate that some of you have access to the product at work. So if there are any questions, please drop them in the chat. We're kind of pretty much halfway through. So before I kind of go into some of the practical application, if there are any questions, any thoughts, any comments, maybe even if you've actually used the product yourself with clients at this stage, kind of we've talked about what the product is, how the body's responding, then please drop those questions in the chat. It'd be great to hear from you. And then what I'm going to do now is look and move into programming solutions. And this is twofold in relation to whether you are a user at home or whether you are looking or using the REV and access to the REV in a more commercial environment. I know obviously some in the audience will have them obviously at work. I'm assuming sort of in a fitness related facility. So we have a number of programming solutions. All of the programs are located in the app. So I've just taken a couple of screenshots which you can see on the screen, which relate to how you can access all of the protocols, all of the programs, and also an introduction to the product, all accessed via the app. So we have REV-only protocols and programs, but we also have integrated protocols where we're combining the PowerPlate and also the PowerPlate REV. So, and their video follow-along programs as well as some basic introductions. So again, if you are a user that has a product at home, so for personal use, these are great follow-along workouts. If you are a coach, a trainer, or a practitioner, and you're using the product, or maybe using the product with customers, with clients, with patients, with athletes, then again, the app is a very, very good resource for all of these protocols and programs. And then, as I said, what we will be doing with everyone on the call is we will be sharing a link to our new online platform where all of these videos and protocols will be located. And then in addition, we have some protocols that are more related to integration as well. So the integration within small group training, where again, we see the REV as being a very powerful product to be able to sit within a small group training environment as well. I myself have been involved in a number of conferences and conventions over the last 18 months, showcasing the REV as part of integrated workouts using PowerPlate, so whole body vibration, and obviously now self-powered vibration. So we have some programming and protocols that are directly related to more commercial environments where you have multiple users on multiple products. So again, please make sure that you check out those resources. And if you have any questions, then we will obviously support that directly. But essentially, we are very much looking at how we can optimize the integration and programming around the REV for all different applications and all different environments. So let's then look very, very quickly at the basic setup of the bike. I'm going to just change my screen slightly. Hopefully, still be able to see me from here. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, so let's look at the basic setup. Again, I didn't catch anybody in the chat that has a product right now with them. If you do, guys, please let me know. I'm just going to walk through basic setup in relation to seats. Maybe if I just move this ever so slightly. So very, very simple setup. We have the handlebars and the seat is adjusted in exactly the same way. So it's just a unscrew loosening here, sliding forward and back, obviously on the seat. And then with the handles, we have the ability to obviously to go up and down. The lever comes out to drop it down. And also we have our forward and back. So exactly the same. Obviously the up and down applies also with the seat as well. So adjusting the product up and down and forward and back. And in relation to the cycling position, then obviously depending on the user, depending on your preference, then typically as a guide that we use, and this will depend on the individual. You can look at elbow to little finger as an approximate guide in relation to the distance between the seat and the handlebars, and then just making sure that when we are on the product, if you want to look at it a different way, then at top dead center, then we're looking at kind of that 90-degree angle. So the most important thing is that we are, one, not locking out as we're cycling, very obvious, as you would set up with any bike. We don't want a complete lockout of the leg, but also making sure that the user isn't too close or equally too far away where they're overreaching. So it wants to be a comfortable riding position. And then in relation to the grips of the handles, that will then be completely dependent on the user. Some people prefer slightly higher position in relation to handlebars and the seat. Cycle enthusiasts, maybe more experienced cyclists, might prefer slightly more angled. Again, it's all personal preference, and none of that would really be any different to how you are setting up a normal indoor bike. So that's the basic setup. You'll see today I'm using our brand new pedals. They are a clipless pedal, which makes it very easy to transition in and out with normal footwear. They're a Vectus pedal, so they make it very easy to clip in and clip out. As standard, the pedals on the REV will come with a normal cage, and they also on the reverse have SBD for cleats as well. So various options for the user. So again, obviously the idea of the Vectus pedals is very easy to clip in and out, particularly if we're utilizing interval-based programs where we might be working with whole body vibration for a period of time into the REV and swapping over, and we want easy transfer and transition from those particular products. Okay, so if you have a REV and you're on the REV, then you can join me with this one. But I just want to talk a little bit about how you would introduce a client for the first time. The first experience is very important, and it's really important just to get them to feel the smooth ride without the vibration. You'll see when you're looking at the console, different information. You have obviously RPM, probably the most important information, RPM, right in the center of the console. You'll have wattage, resistance level, and obviously exercise time. So when we're looking at a user that's introducing it for the first time, then whatever comfortable cycling position is appropriate, just get them used to adjusting the resistance. So it's a click down resistance, different gears, just to the point where they feel they're engaging that resistance and having to work through a little bit more resistance, just so they kind of feel the nature of the bike and the REV without the vibration. And then really what happens is, and this is where the magic happens, is turning on vibe shift. So I would suggest slowing down to around 70 RPM initially, and then just dropping the lever all the way down. Very simple. So if we drop the lever down, maybe 10 seconds, just to experience the change and the addition of the vibration, and then pop that resistance off and pop that vibration back off, and let them experience that kind of 10 to 15 seconds of vibration, and then no vibration. And we suggest maybe doing that a couple of times just to get them used to that transition from no vibration to vibration. And what you'll notice straight away is that increase of resistance as well as the vibration really have to work hard to then start to maintain the cadence. And that's where the challenge immediately comes in. So in relation to, again, thinking about that kind of first impression or first experience, then if you have a client that also wants to combine the resistance, then when you add vibration, you can also add resistance as well. So you're adding resistance on top of the vibration, which again is going to allow or challenge the body to an even greater degree. So creating more muscle tension. More muscle tension is a magnet for the vibration. So again, that muscle stimulation is increased significantly. I'm already starting to get out of breath. And that is one of the key initial responses that you have with the REV. People really notice the difference in just 15 seconds of work compared to vibration and no vibration. So just to recap on some key things in relation to practical application. That first experience is key. It's making sure that they are made familiar with changing resistance which obviously comes from the flywheel at the back. And with that is when you're transitioning to vibration, what we typically find is it's easier to start with to bring the resistance back. So take the resistance off, add vibration for the first few repetitions, just so they feel the difference. And then once we've encouraged them and made sure they're comfortable with that transition, it's then about moving them to focus on cadence and RPM. So after that first one or two, when we add the resistance and the vibration again, we want to be getting them focused on a relaxed upper body and working towards that 90 RPM. So they really start to, again, feel that challenge of not just adding the vibe shift technology, but also controlling that and working at a certain cadence. In this case, we're looking for 90 RPM. Depending on your user, they may want to go a little faster, but it really is about educating them to get to that 90 RPM, particularly for their interval-based protocols. And the final question, or the final kind of point, and often the question we get asked is seated versus standing. We believe that the optimum position to be in all of the time is a seated position, simply when we're using the vibration particularly. Simply because in that seated position, when we drive the hips back in and we have to really power through the legs, we know that the legs are working harder in a seated position because they're really having to drive through the resistance. Therefore, because the lower body muscles are working harder, they're therefore under more tension. So therefore, the vibration stimulus is of a much greater degree, and therefore that is about optimizing the response of vibration stimulating the muscles. So when you look at our protocols, our videos, you will always see different riding positions, which is personal and user preference. But in relation to seated versus standing, we highly recommend staying in the saddle, dropping the hips back, and really powering through the legs, because that's what's going to give us our optimum response in relation to utilizing the vibration. And that kind of carries through with all of the protocols and all of the programs that we have designed. So a couple of additional points, then just ensure from a user standpoint that when they are transitioning from vibration to no vibration, the lever is pushed all the way down. Sometimes what I find is that because people get into the habit of changing resistance one click at a time, sometimes people think that you can kind of put a little bit of vibration, more vibration, or more vibration. It is simply vibration on or off. It's very, very important that they are shown, encouraged, and coached to push that lever all the way down to engage the vibration. Once they've done it a few times, they will get into the habit, but essentially it's really important because sometimes people just drop it a little bit and then it will not engage, because what has to happen is the lever has to go all the way down, lock in the mechanism, which shifts it to the vibe shift crank, and that's when we can then obviously utilize the vibration. So lever all the way down, and then all the way off when we are transitioning from using the vibe shift technology. And remember, you can obviously add resistance on top of the vibration depending on the fitness, the level, the protocol of the individual client athlete that you are working with. And that kind of moves us into to a degree sort of the practical component. And obviously what you'll see from our protocols, from our program design, everything is based around interval-based programming. And the REHIT, so the reduced exertion, high intensity interval training workouts are something that we highly recommend people trying. They come in 2 or 3 different versions. The one that we recommend people to start with, just as an introduction, is 20-second bouts. So essentially working for 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes without vibration as a warm-up, So essentially just allowing the body to get used to the ride, and obviously increase blood flow and circulation, preparing the body. And then essentially what we have is 2 20-second bouts. So 2 to 3 minutes warm up, 20-second bout of max effort. So that can be anywhere between 90 and 120 RPM with as much resistance as you can tolerate. So kind of max effort for 20 seconds. And then we recover then for 2 minutes. And then we add 20 seconds again. And then we recover for 2 to 3 minutes. So it's around a 7-minute, 48-minute protocol that allows you to really experience 2 kind of maximal 20-second bouts. But again, the idea of that is within those 20 seconds, based on the metabolic and the physiological demand on the body, using the vibration technology really optimizes that 20-second bout. And it's a really, really effective protocol to introduce people to what that feels like. And obviously, because with reduced exertion HIIT-based training, you are allowing the body to recover optimally in between bouts. So essentially, that is a 20-second period of work with an extensive recovery. And then what you see on our protocols and our programming is another version of REHIT, which will be, there's 2 versions of this one. It's 8 seconds of work with 15 seconds of recovery, or 10 seconds of work with 20 seconds recovery in repeated bouts. And it's a very interesting protocol to try, because I'm sure you'll be familiar with things like Tabata, which typically is a 20 seconds of work and 10 seconds recovery. So the recovery, the work to rest ratio is 1 to 1/2. Whereas with reduced exertion high intensity training, the work to rest ratio is 1 to 2. So you work for 10 seconds and you recover for 20. So what that allows the body to do is to fully recover. So therefore, each working set is optimized, but there isn't as much accumulation of fatigue as you might get with a more traditional Tabata protocol. So again, really 2 contrasting protocols, all within the HIIT-based genre of training, but would really encourage you to try and compare and contrast 20 seconds with 10 seconds rest, and then 10 seconds with 20 seconds rest, and see how that impacts the local metabolic response in terms of accumulation of fatigue, and also central metabolic response as well, and heart rate. So again, if you haven't tried any of the protocols, definitely would encourage you to do that. And beyond that, then we then talk about interval training in general. So there's no sort of difference in relation to this modality when you talk about general interval-based training. So whether you're doing a minute on, a minute off, whether you do 15 on, all of those different interval-based protocols are all very, very relevant, because essentially we're looking to utilize the REV to optimize that work duration, that short work duration. What we're not recommending as such is sitting on the bike with vibration for 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes continuous with vibration. It's very much, well, of course, you can do that without the vibration, but when we talk about actually utilizing the vibration from a response and adaptation perspective, we know that the optimum response is when we're doing short duration interval-based protocols, and the reduced exertion high intensity training is something that we highly recommend everyone to have a look at and certainly try and experience, because it really does lend itself perfectly to a short bout. And we know that the REV then is really optimizing the response and the demand placed on the body within those short bouts of work. Okay, so that is kind of bringing the session to an end. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to check the chat just to see if we have any questions. Jess, did you notice any questions come in, or?
No questions.
No questions. Okay, so guys, that kind of completes the session. We kind of have a few minutes if there are any questions. And like I said, we have a relatively small group, so please, if anything's kind of prompted any thoughts, any pop-ups, anything, any reflections, then please drop them in the chat. We have a couple of minutes for any discussions, just to kind of give a recap from what we've been talking about, and obviously give you some time to process. hopefully that's an introduction to the REV in relation to what it is. So the mechanisms, this unique self-powered vibration, so a combination of resistance and vibration delivered through the pedals. I've talked about the response in the body, so specifically around muscle activation, all of those muscles involved in cycling, the quads, the glutes, calves and hamstrings. We see a significant increase in muscle activation in those lower extremity muscle regions. And then linking that to obviously cycling in relation to speed and cadence, we know that in order to optimize the frequency and therefore that muscle response, we're looking at cycling between 90, 110, up to 120 RPM. That window is quite a large window when you look at cycling. So obviously that will be dependent on the client and the individual, and obviously the protocol and the training goals. And then also kind of linking that then into how to use it and the protocols, then in simple terms, any short duration interval-based workout is suitable, but we would highly recommend checking out our protocols, going through the reduced exertion, high intensity training protocols. They really are a great way of optimizing the benefits of the REV in relation to those short bouts of work. And then I showed you a little bit in relation to practical application, just making sure that the user first experiences adding resistance first, take the resistance off, get them to push the lever all the way down, that black left lever all the way down to engage the vibration, let them experience 10, 15 seconds of the vibration, pick it back off, so they can compare and sort of feel the difference between vibration on and vibration off. You can do that a couple of times. You can extend it to up to that 20 seconds, and then start to introduce cadence, because then we're getting to that point where they're also being challenged to get to 90 or a similar sort of RPM. And obviously the most important thing then is encouraging them to work in short duration interval-based protocols. Okay, I think I can see the chat box. Have a look. Would it be good for someone who had hip surgery 3 months ago? Good question. So obviously now, so in relation to, and this is similar to all of our products, the key is based on the individual and the user, and obviously their capacity to perform that particular exercise. So we are talking about cycling, which obviously involves a certain degree of hip flexion and hip extension. So we would typically suggest, if that individual is cleared to return back to cardiovascular exercise, in this relation to the REV specifically, then we're talking about, can they actually produce a cycling motion in relation to functional capacity? Then if that is the case, then yes, because this becomes obviously a low impact, no impact pretty much modality. Obviously then we're getting that increase in muscle activation, the lower body particularly. So if cycling is a modality that has been chosen for that particular individual, and they are cleared and safe and able to do that, then yes, from a vibration standpoint, that would be absolutely fine in relation to utilizing the vibration for sure. Okay, so guys, if there are any again, no problem. If there are any other thoughts, any reflections, maybe even in the last sort of few minutes, if you have already tried the REV, either yourself or with clients, patients, anybody want to share any feedback, or again, I'll just kind of leave it open for any more questions, just for a minute or so. So I found from just to talk a little bit from personal experience, a really effective way of showing people and people experiencing it is the sort of the use of heart rate monitors. We have a global partnership with MyZone, and what we're finding is that the change in heart rate, the very quick elevation in heart rate when the vibration is engaged, is a really good way of showing people, even though they do feel it physiologically, they sort of feel that the body is working harder. They feel the circulation, they feel the muscles are working much harder, even though it's a very short duration. But it's very interesting to look at the elevation in heart rate, even in those sort of very short durations. So highly recommended if you If you are, which I'm sure many practitioners would be using heart rate monitors, but certainly for individuals to kind of compare that increase in heart rate when you're adding the vibration is quite significant, as we'd expect, because of the fact that, as I've said, that increase in resistance and stimulation of those lower body muscles creates that very, very local metabolic response and metabolic demand on the body. Turning the lock in back to elevate seat locks for safety. Should the knob be turned back to lock seat? Yeah, so basically you have obviously the mechanism that allows the seat to move up and down. Actually, it looks a little bit different to someone. In this case, because it's out, it actually locks it in automatically when you're moving it. So in order to drop it down, you lift it out and it drops down and it automatically locks in. But yes, when you are unscrewing the horizontal adjustment, both handlebars and seat, then yes, definitely lock it in and just keep turning until it locks it in place, obviously to avoid it sliding across the rail. Yes, for sure. No problem. I'm glad that was that was a good insight. So guys, I'm going to bring this session to a close. It's actually very rare that I finish on time. So I just wanted to firstly thank everyone for joining. Hopefully that was as it was intended to be, an insight into the PowerPlate REV, what it is, how the body responds, and then some of the protocols that we're evolving with. And really just to reiterate that what will happen is you will be sent an email with a link to then access our new online education portal. Highly recommended to jump on there. It will give you the videos, it will give you even much more educational content, as well as the actual follow-along workouts as well. And for those interested, it will also give you the specific research that I referenced as part of the presentation. So that will certainly be a very, very valuable resource for you. And obviously, if anybody does have any further questions in relation to whether it's for home use or certainly in a commercial environment in relation to protocols, programming, then also we are very much here to support. This is very exciting for us as the REV sort of enters the market, so to speak, whether it be fitness, medical, performance, home use. So we are very much here to support, and we intend to continue evolving the protocols and the programming, again, to make sure that we're able to cater for a very diverse user group. So guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. My name is Steve. Again, you will receive an email from us in the follow-up. Yes, thank you very much for your help moderating. And I wish you all a great day. And thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much.